I know we have a lot to cover, so I don't want to delay too long in getting started. It's Friday, people might be sneaking in. So my name is Monica Huntsberry, and I have the pleasure of being an advisor for Revel 11, where we host both online and in-person retreats and have amazing and informative conversations about ways we want to change the world and make a difference. And we welcome you here this Friday to talk about ritual. Before we get started, I do want to share a little bit of background about Magdalena. I have the pleasure of hosting her a second time this fall season, and it's a delight to be in conversation with her. Magdalena is a mother, a storyteller, educator, creator, and ceremony leader. I love that, ceremony leader. For the last 25 years, she has led families through trauma-informed social justice approach that puts respectful, deep listening of the heart, mind, and body at the core. Understanding the unique power of ceremony for healing, she creates opportunities for embodied storytelling with adults and children as they navigate big and small thresholds, milestones, or transitions of their lives, which is just lovely. And here we find ourselves at the cusp of holidays for some of us, and a time of tradition, and a time when we're all feeling super, super busy. Please share a little bit, Magdalena, about what ritual means to you and why we're here today of all times.
Thanks, Monica. Thanks for that intro there. Yeah, it's such a busy time for so many people. There's so many holidays. There's end of year stuff, but this is also this very special time of being, well, it's not post-pandemic, but last year, many of us were not gathering. And here we are, many of us might be rethinking some of what we've always done, some of the status quo, because it was taken from us. Or we may be enthusiastically diving back in to what always was. But it seems like a really great opportunity to pause and think about, what do we do at this time of the year? And how does it really enhance our experience of ourselves, our connection with others, and our ability to move forward anew.
I love that. And I think I'd also like to offer you an opportunity to give everybody an invitation for themselves for this hour. I'm sure if you're like me, there's a lot rattling around of things that you can, should, or would be doing, right? And the importance of gathering today and what you want to cover.
Yeah. Well, for everyone who's still multitasking, as we tend to be very good at, to our benefit and our detriment sometimes, I welcome you as you make your way in. And if there's an opportunity to put things aside for just a little bit, I'd love to offer you this little tiny container of a pause. And to begin with, actually, I'm going to jump to the end because we're probably all in our thinking brains, whatever it is we're doing. So you know what we're going to do. I'm going to talk about how I came to ritual and what I understand about it, and then why it's important, how to do it, and then we're going to do one together. We're going to craft a little mini something, and then I will lead us through a ritual together.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So do you want to start with talking about how you came into this practice of ritual and why you found a calling here?
Yeah. So I want to start off by saying that my name is Magdalena. I am the daughter of Mary Adela, who's the daughter of Carmel and the daughter of Ramona. And I speak of that lineage because not because there is some deep wisdom tradition in my family of being shamans or people who lead through. And I was raised Catholic, as they were. So ritual in that organized sense, done by someone else, watching it, is in my blood. But I speak of them also because there were these tiny rituals that would happen all of the time that I didn't understand what they were. Like before we would leave to go on a trip, my grandma would have us kneel down and they would put their hands on our heads and give us a blessing. I always thought it was weird. I wasn't into it. And now I understand what they were doing and how powerful that was and how grounding. Fast forward to 16 years ago when we were pregnant and we actually lost our first baby, and the experience in the hospital when the nurses gave me a beautiful little purple box to remember her by. And there was something on my door that told people that something quite sacred, some would say full of grief, I would say pretty sacred. The line between life and death was pretty close at that point, right? That ceremony of those sacred objects, those special objects, those symbolic objects meant something to me. And I was surprised at how much, how deeply it moved me, those different elements. So when my daughter was born, who is now 15, when she was born 15 years ago, well, my second daughter, when she was born, I knew I needed to celebrate her birthday in some kind of way that was beyond what I had been experiencing as a parent for other people's birthdays and what I had experienced as a child. I felt this insatiable need to capture the significance of the magic of birth, having had the experience of loss previously. And so on her birthday, every year, I would gather people. I didn't know what to call it. I called it sort of this embarrassing, annoying thing that I did to my family and friends. We're going to gather. We have symbols for this year that to tell the story of where I'm entering and what she's entering. We're going to have some special food. I'm going to wear this particular outfit. We're going to put these things around the house to decorate. I didn't know what any of that was. I just knew I had to do it. So then fast forward a couple of years later, I co-founded a small nonprofit elementary school in our area. And I knew I needed, again, just finding this intuitive desire to capture what was happening for parents as they were dropping their kindergartners off to school for the first time. Oh, if anybody on the call has children and you've taken your kindergartner for the first time, it is heart-wrenching and joyful, so many things all mixed up. And I wanted to symbolize somehow this passing over of a baby bird from one nest to another. That was the image that kept coming to me. And I found this book. It's called Creating Rituals, A New Way of Healing for Everyday Life by Jim Clark. And the reason I bring that up is because there are many wisdom traditions, many indigenous traditions that have very important and profound ceremonies and rituals where things are prescribed and there are people who know them well. And I believe that there is a place for that. I have found my way into this idea of ceremony and ritual through my own intuitive yearning for imagination and symbolism, and finding a simple book like that just talked about a very simple way to put ritual in as a way of healing really spoke to me. And so at our school, we would have baskets and the parents would paint rocks with their child's name. And symbolically, the parent would take their rock and take it from their nest and put it into our nest. And then they would bang a drum. And that was the moment, which I think what ritual is, where we get to dive deep, sort of like there's these waters that travel underneath the story of our everyday life. And we dip down into the water and take some meaning, take some wonder, take some magic, and have a deeper understanding and connection with where we're at. where other people are at, and even this bigger idea of our connection. And I will say, the last thing I'll say about that is that ritual is our language as humans. It's been studied forever and ever. You could go and go to any library, and there's bazillions of books about ritual and ceremony and the power of this creative expression. And what I know is that it's here today still, because in those times when we did the ritual at our school, children understood the language. I was always like, I had to be kind of courageous, because I'm going to do this with parents and kids, and like, oh, what's this weird thing? It's kind of, I don't know. And I just trusted it. And as soon as the container was set, as soon as the environment happened, I would turn on some music to begin, and all the 4-year-olds, the 5-year-olds, the 10-year-olds suddenly would have a feeling. They would get that something very special was about to happen, and they would quietly sit. Whereas any other time, all over, puppies in a box, come on, come sit down. This was, they understood the language of symbolism. They understood intuitively the language of metaphor and of storytelling. And so that's how I know that this thing we call ritual, that some people don't feel like they're qualified to do. It's kind of like poetry, right? Like, I think we are all poets. Are we all poet laureates? Maybe not, but we are all poets, and we can all write this poem. And ritual is a way to bring some of that poetics into these key moments in our life.
That's so lovely. And I love the visual. I love the underneath the surface and connecting with our emotion. It feels like a lot of times we are in our thinking brain. And so we think we're processing that child going off to kindergarten. My experience was one just going off to college, right? And so we think we're processing, we might be journaling, we might be doing some activities where we think we're moving through this, but often it's absent creating a true form of what you're defining as ritual. So tell us why it's important for us to bring that component to life and engage beyond just our thinking brains.
Yeah. We're made up of so many parts, right? And this incredibly large brain that we developed as Homo sapiens, as humans, that's why we are, as babies, we're completely helpless, right? Because we need to put all of the energy into the growing of this brain. We don't just pop out and start running around the field like a little baby colt would. We're putting all this energy into this development, and we want to honor our brain and what it does, and that cognition in that way. And we're also bodies, right? We are also feeling, experiencing through our senses. And then we're imagination. Some might say we're spirit. Some might say we're psyche. Depth psychology and Jungian work has also had a profound effect on me. And then we're a collective. There's stuff happening in the world. People are having similar dreams, like nighttime dreams. People are having similar daytime dreams, like, why am I in this dead end job that I hate, right? Like, the pandemic shook a lot out for people, and that's a collective. We are social animals. We are social beings, and so we are affected by those collective stories. So ritual gives us, as a language, this creative opportunity to pull these stories, to connect our body, and to be in that moment. The word retreat, I've heard, has a definition of like this idea of pausing to let your body to let your spirit catch up with you. And ritual, no matter how small it is, gives us that time to pause, and breathe and savor. And right now in this epoch as humans, right? Technology gets us moving so fast, so many possibilities. We could go in so many directions. But also this time of year, I hear so many people just trying to get through this as quickly as possible. Like, how can we take this moment and just pause?
And I think that leads into, conversations that we've also had around how to use ritual to deepen our sense of tradition or those times that are important. Do you want to share a little more about that?
Yeah. So recently, back in October, there was Dia de los Muertos. And I'm not, in my family, we don't traditionally celebrate that. But I have been thinking a lot about ancestors recently. And so I borrowed the idea of, on a special day, thinking about the ones who came before and that connection. And so this year, I decided we were going to have a special dinner, and I got special food, and I set the table, and I got the flowers, and I walked around and gathered things from grandparents and friends who have passed, and I put them all at the table, and I put some music on, and I got some candles, and so the ceremony was set. And I invited my husband and my daughter to come have dinner to start the dinner. But no, it was a Tuesday night or whatever it was. Everybody was like, I have homework to do. I really want to just look at Instagram. It was really hard to feel like I could drag them into the moment. And I realized I didn't have to. I couldn't make them be in that place to dip down into those waters down below. So I just left it. I didn't push anything, and we had our dinner. It was really beautiful, and I felt partially satisfied. But later on, I needed to take the time to actually think about my ancestors. I had the ceremony set, the environment had been set, but I needed to invoke their name. And invoke is just a fancy sort of shamanistic word for, like, I need to say their name with some intention. I needed to offer them something. There's something very powerful about offering spirits, offering memories, gifts. And I needed to do that. And I needed to sit quietly for a little bit and hear if there was anything being offered back. That was a solo experience, but I needed that little bit. So in terms of the elements of ritual, the components are very simple. An inspired intention, which I got from my good friend Pam, who got via Tess Whitehurst. Some inspired intention, and inspired being it's coming from here, but it's also coming from somewhere. It being in collaboration, I don't know, I had this idea, I had this inspired intention for this occasion, this event, this moment, this starting of school, this Dia de los Muertos, this birthday, this Christmas Eve dinner, this first night of Hanukkah. And I have an inspired intention around that. And then there's symbolic action and symbolic objects. There's the preparing of the environment. And then there's some meaningful participation. All of these elements, these four little elements that could seem like, it's kind of like when you're learning to cook, right? You're like, oh my gosh, how did they know how to put those little ingredients together? Once we have those ingredients and we put them together in the way that works for us, that's the thing that means a lot to me, is how can you and I create these meaningful moments utilizing this creative tool and dip down into this place of nourishment. So, did that answer the question? Okay.
Yes, sorry, I have a little construction going on, not at my house, so I keep going on mute, so I apologize for that. But yes, it did, and I love that you shared that personal example and how sometimes it doesn't always go as intended. And I love how you also commented that you felt partially satisfied, right? Sometimes that happens when we create these events and we expect others to have the same sort of enthusiasm that we do. And then you look deeper and you said, but I can still honor this, and I can still, it doesn't need to be an event in order for it to be a ritual. That's also what I thought was beautiful in what you shared. So how do people then determine how to honor what's important to them and go about this practice of creating ritual?
Yeah, well, I wonder from the people who are participating with us today, if you feel comfortable putting it in the chat, do you currently use ritual for anything in your life? Are there elements that you may put in place? It'd be great to see a little bit of that.
Yes, and Melissa asked you to fill in inspired intention, symbolic,
Yeah, symbolic action.
and participation.
Symbolic action, meaningful participation.
Great.
And then a curated environment.
And we will be sending out a follow-up note with a handout, so you'll have some reference tools as well. As ways
Yeah.
to get in touch with Magdalena. So
Yeah.
good questions. Thank you. But yes, it would be great to know if there are upcoming rituals that are on your mind that you'd like to think about, because perhaps we can dive into that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So there will be a guide that you'll get with lots of questions and ideas to get in the developing understanding that I have of moving in and using this powerful tool of ritual. In addition, tomorrow I'll be holding a solstice movement and reflection time, when you get a little taste of that as well. So what I'd love to do is talk through the elements of ritual again, and in a little more depth, and actually talk about it in terms of creating one together. So, oh, great. I see winter solstice. Nice. Great. So Melissa does something for winter solstice, and that's actually what I'd love to focus on today, because it's right around the corner. Tomorrow we'll be moving and dancing and writing in anticipation, but Tuesday is the solstice. So what I'd love to do is take some time to think through. Maybe you've never celebrated the solstice before. Maybe you always celebrate the solstice. You can even think about and the end of the year as well. Oh, great. Okay. So if we think about, let's think about the solstice, right? The solstice being that time of the year where it's pretty even night and day. Actually, that's the equinox. The solstice is that it's the darkest night of the year. And it has been getting darker and darker and darker up until this day. And then from then, the light will begin to return. And if we didn't do daylight savings time, if maybe you're in a place that doesn't do that, but if we didn't do it, we would actually see the sun decreasing minute by minute, day by day. And then we would have this time when it's the darkest. And as Melissa stated, it's a beautiful time for thinking about what we want to release and what we want to bring in. So the first question that I ask when I want to do a ritual, when I need to do a ritual, is how do we tend to the story of this occasion? How do we tend not just to the participants, but actually tend to the meaning? If the solstice were an entity sitting in front of me, How might I engage with it? What relationship does it have to me today? Again, there are traditions that are passed down and people who have prescriptive ways of honoring these times of year, and they are so fantastic. And I wonder, what do I bring this year to the solstice? How can I host this significance? So if solstice is here, and I am going to tend to solstice, I have some significance in relation, and that significance actually is an entity. How might that significance and solstice interact? Just as I say that, I feel like some kind of expansion in my chest. I feel a different relationship to the occasion of solstice than if I just, I'm gonna do this thing and I'm gonna get some candles because that's what I'm supposed to. I think I've heard that, and I'm gonna try this thing. Candles might not be your thing. You might not have any candles. I have a lot of reverence. So here's the three things that I want to bring to ritual as well. I don't bring to them. They're things that lead me to ritual. There we go. Reverence for the occasion. Curiosity for what's up for me in relation to it. What's up for me right now? And the last one is flexibility. Flexibility in how I come to it. Flexibility in what the outcome is, like my Dia de los Muertos, like, okay, well, that didn't work out, especially when you've got other people involved. So reverence, curiosity, and flexibility are the qualities that draw me to wanting to use ritual. Elizabeth, did you have a question?
I think sometimes it's easy to click on a hand raise. Okay. So I think you can continue. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So if we think about this reverence, this curiosity, and this flexibility, and I'm tending to this occasion, what is the story of the solstice for you today? I'm actually asking that. I'm asking myself, what does this actually mean today for me? And I wonder do you want to drop it in the chat, what it means to you today? Mm-hmm. So there's endings, the regrets, singing in the light of a new year. So when I was feeling in last night and thinking about doing this with you all and getting prepared for doing it on Tuesday, shedding and letting go, I had this feeling of this light and dark, right? And that's what it is. And I was feeling the heaviness of the light and the dark, and my striving to have it be balanced. I feel like I should be a balanced person, and I haven't felt so balanced this year. I don't know if anybody else could relate, but I was actually feeling some regret over a lack of balance and having more darkness, more shadow, more difficulty than I would have wanted, and not always being able to bounce in the way and bring lightness in the way that I would want to. So for me, the solstice, the story that I'm hosting today is one of acceptance of my inability to always have balance. So that's what I bring today to this. So here's what I'd like to do. If you have your intention, think about an intention, the inspired intention you could have for the solstice. It can be very small. What you can even borrow what other people wrote in the chat. And just write that down or have it in your head. And what I'd like to do is actually have a short little ritual with you. And I'll guide us through. You're welcome to participate with me or just watch. It's like the ritual cooking show, or like get right in there. And we'll have a little moment together, and then we'll kind of dissect it on the way out. Right? So in terms of, I have all my little notes here, in terms of a curated environment, a lot of us know how to do that, right? I mean, the TJ Maxx is filled with all the decorations. There's all kinds of shows. Martha Stewart got big on this, right? Like, let's set the stage. So I'm going to set my little table here. Some might call it an altar, and which is another word for like a special workspace. And I just pulled whatever. Yes, it's a Sour Patch Kids gingerbread kit, because you know what? Everybody needs one of those in their life. And a really big art book, which we all need those. But how many of those do you actually need? We have a lot at our house. I have my special fabric that I just love so much. And I love the way it feels. It starts to engage my senses. I want to think about what I can bring in to see, to smell, to taste, to touch, to hear, because those are the things that bring my body into right now. I'm here when I activate my senses. All right, so I've got my space here. I've elevated some materials to a beautiful plate. Why do we put it on a beautiful plate? Because it tells us that these are special things. These are just not out of the ordinary things. I mean, some of these things are typically on my desk and they're join me when I'm paying, the bills. But now there's something. They are special. They tell something deep inside of me that I'm leaving the ordinary world, the 10,000 things of life, for just a little bit. So on here, I have my candle. If you have a candle, you can just have it out. We won't light it yet. If you don't have a candle, imagination is a powerful thing. I also have something to smell, which is this oil that I love, and I save it for kind of special times like this, because these scents can be get us into a place, a portal, if you will. The scent, our sense of smell, does many things for us in taking us deeper. That happens to be my scent. I have this is some jewelry that I found that is reminding me of this solstice time. And I have something special to wear, right? Like priests and ministers and shaman, they have the garb. Why? Because if we want to have a spiritual tradition, we all have to dress like that. Well, I mean, you could, yes, but there's also something very that signals, again, our body and our mind to travel to a different place when we have something that we put on. So I happen to have this scarf, and as I was going through my scarf drawer, this is the one that had the story for me of what this time is, this dark and this light. I could have picked a different one. There isn't anything particularly special about this. It wasn't blessed. It doesn't have holy water on it. It is my symbol today. So when I put this on, I'm also reminded of this beautiful animal, this sheep that offered its warmth to make this, and hopefully it was done ethically, and it was passed down to me. So if it wasn't, I will honor it as it is. So I have my setup here. And you can look around your space there. If there's anything where you're sitting that you just kind of look at it and go, I don't like the way that looks, I'm going to move that out of the way. I'm not into that. It's kind of cluttering my space. You might have something like that. And the last thing is, I want to invite a sense of connection in with me. Connection to what is known. I invite all of you in, but also to that which is unknown. And I have a rock that is a fossil. It has a bit of a fossil that I found at the ocean. And to me, this is the symbol today of time, and that time moves on. It moves on and on and on. So what I've done is now brought us here in some sense, brought me here in some sense. I am feeling different than I was 3 minutes ago. So we're moving in to this place. And what I've done is I've created a ceremonial space. Ceremony is the container, ritual is the vehicle that takes us a little bit deeper. So I also, as I invite time in here in the form of this rock, I also want to acknowledge the land that I sit on. I want to acknowledge the birds and the soil and the fungi and the trees and the wind. I want to acknowledge the formal caretakers of this land, the Gabrielino and the Tongva peoples. And I'm here. And I feel different already. I'm in a different place, climbing the ladder down into the story. So I was saying that my intention for this solstice is to accept how I've been, where I've been, and that I haven't always been so wonderfully balanced in navigating the dark and the light. Because this year there were things that broke me. There were things that were hard to bounce back from. And my symbolic action for that are these leaves and the crumbling. Oh, geez. Side note, it rained, so all my leaves are not so crispy as I want. Which was playful too. Oh my gosh. Oh, it smells so good. So that's why I have a backup. I was broken. That was me. And another time. It was me. And another time. I was broken this year, and I couldn't always bounce back so quickly. And that's okay. I'm here to honor that. I have my sage that I keep in this little magic jar. It smells like the ocean cliffs near my house. Oh, and sage has been used forever as cleansing. Just the smell of it takes me to a different place. It allows me to think about the waves and the ocean and the cleansing. I might light a little sage. And what I want is hope and belief that even in being popped, in being pulverized like these dry leaves, there is lightness. There are blessings. And I light my candle. If you have a candle, you can light yours. I meant to invite you to think about what may have popped you, but I got so into my thing. So something you could try. I light this candle. Fire is sacred to humans. It still is on this primal level, which is why candlelight is so magical. When you light it, something happens. And here I am. The blessings to come, the acceptance of what I was, and hopes for what will be. You can imagine you're holding a candle. You can look at my candle as your beacon for all that is good and acceptable within you. And as I make my way out of this, as we make our way out, I'm going to sip a little tea. So if you have something to sip on, or you have your imaginative cup filled with the tea of breath and air, I like to put my tea for these kinds of things in a tiny, teeny little glass because it's not for gulping. We are moving out of ordinary life. This is about a little something. I wasn't going to tell you this, but I forgot to put water in my teapot. And so I'm having pretend tea just like you. I wanted it to be hot, and it wasn't going to be hot by the time I sat with you. So I waited, and then I didn't fill it up. But if we did, we can all imagine, because when I drink this in, what I'm telling my body is it's okay to take this in. This tea will become my fingernails, will become my skin, my hair. Everything I consume becomes me, and then I can be a gift to others with what happened in this moment. I'm aware of our time, and if I had more time, and I will do this on the solstice, I have a poem by an actual poet laureate, Joy Harjo, about remembering, about what I can remember, what I want to remember, even as I struggle with the light and the dark and the management and the balance, even as I struggle with acceptance. So I'll close this with this cute little bell that my dad gave me. Again, like, you could go to the spiritual R Us store and buy all kinds of things, and all of those things are amazing, and it can mean something to you. There's a reason singing bowls sing to people, is because they do something very special. But anything, bang a pot, tap out on a whatever, one of those cool guys in New Orleans who plays, the bucket, whatever, make some sound, make some noise, announce yourself. I announce this intention in the world, in my space, to my dirty laundry, to the neighbors, to my beautiful avocado tree. I announce to you that I am here to accept all that I am, and the ways I attach to the light, and the way I let dark take over sometimes. Acceptance is my story today for the solstice. Hmm.
Hmm.
And if we were doing this together, I do help people to craft their own rituals and ceremonies, to either do on their own or help do it for them, with them. I would, this energy that I feel, I would let it extend and be thoughtful about what comes next. So at your Christmas dinner, at your New Year's dinner, at when you're going to give your toast this year, when you're going to give the presents, and you want to have a moment that dives deeper, just for a moment, even just an inspired intention, along with your beautifully curated environment that many of you probably already have right now. And think about a way that people can participate, meaningful in some little tiny way. And then we kind of see if that energy can keep going. I might put some music on to dance a little bit. And sometimes I'm the only one at my family parties who would get up and move. And then somebody starts getting up a little bit, and the energy shifts. And then we move into celebration and partying and, champagne and all that delicious stuff. But now I know that I've dipped down into the waters of the story, underneath the story, and I've maybe supported other people in doing the same.
So beautiful. Thank you. I think part of what came up for me in witnessing you do that, and thank you for sharing so openly and graciously and dramatically. I loved it all. Is that what this does? Is it gives you a moment to put the moment in a container of sorts, right? And I like what you said about ceremony is the container and ritual is the vehicle, and both are part of that process. And because you can take the time to really think about intention instead of just doing the action, and creating and invoking all of the senses, it helps you ground in that moment and that memory. Because so often, all the, people talk about, oh, you spend all this time and then poof, it's gone. And this is how to keep it close, right?
Yeah.
The connection is really what comes up for me. Really lovely.
Great. Good. That was really great. Yes. And if you are wanting to do this with family around, that's where the flexibility comes in. Just give it a shot a little bit. I'm going to dip down and I invite, and you just have the spirit of invitation for those around you. Some people are going to think you're weird. Some people are going to think you're really cool. Some people are just going to blow you off and not do the thing. And that's okay. That's totally okay. It's a language that everyone speaks, but for some of us, the volume is louder around, or our capabilities around it are just moved forward a little bit more than others, but everyone can sense the power of it.
And I did want to share one note that Luann had put in the chat. She wrote, when I clean my home, it ends up being instinctive ritual. I burn sage, incense, and just walk around my home, giving thanks for the space, for safety, for the things that sustain my family, and also the little things that just bring us smiles. And I love that, because again, it shows how ritual and intention can be part of anything and create beauty in any event, even cleaning our homes.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you, Lou. Thank you for offering that.
If anyone else has any final comments or questions, feel free to add them. But I think, Magdalena, we can all agree that was a lovely space you took us to this morning, and a great way for us to get an idea of what might serve us for rituals going forward, and to be thinking about rituals. I think many of the comments hasn't been something we've given much thought to. So I think we've invoked a curiosity. And any final comments, Magdalena, before I take us to the next closing?
Yeah. This is so it's such a playful, imaginative place to be too, that like this shawl means something. Like what? It can mean anything. And everything has a story. Everything is something. And that's just playful. And so I invite you to just play with that. And if you want to come tomorrow, I'll have a free movement and reflection solstice honoring tomorrow, 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You'll get a link to that if you want to register in the email that will come after. We'll get to play a little bit more. And if there's an event that's coming up for you, a birthday, I've done bridal showers, baby showers, and graduations. If there's something that you want help in diving a little deep and then you go and do on your own, you can definitely reach out. It's very powerful, and we have great opportunity this year to just infuse a little taste.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And we appreciate you sharing so generously. And we will be sending out, as I put in the chat, an email and follow up with some of the links that Magdalena referenced. I encourage you to continue to learn more from her and uncover your practice of ritual. And the last thing on that topic, Magdalena and I in prep spoke briefly, and we said, one of the gifts of the pandemic has been a disruption from all that is traditional, or all that is, maybe the right word isn't even traditional, is all that is rote that we're always doing, and give us time to think about what has to look different, because perhaps we can't travel or be with the people we normally would be at this time of year, or what do we choose differently because we've had time to step back and step out of traditional routines and ask ourselves what's important. And I think ritual is a great way to deepen that connection and understanding of what we want going forward instead of the way it's always been.